All right, picture this. You have a massive, historic, multi-billion-dollar legacy bank. They've literally just spent 3 years and hundreds of millions of dollars on this state-of-the-art digital transformation program. They finally launched their brand new app, all the executives are crossing their fingers, and absolutely nothing happens. Their market share is still steadily sliding, and these nimble new tech competitors just keep stealing away their very best customers. So today in this explainer, we're going to dissect this massive paradox that is keeping corporate executives awake at night. We'll walk right alongside this fictional global bank as it tries to figure out how to genuinely survive the new digital business paradigm. If you want to understand how to actually make this digital shift work, instead of just throwing endless piles of cash at it, you are in the exact right place. Let's dive right in.
So we have to ask, why do a staggering number of these massive digital transformations just fundamentally fail? All over the world, you have executive teams pumping tremendous amounts of manpower, time, and precious financial resources into these huge initiatives. But despite dedicating thousands of employee hours and absolutely staggering budgets, the results are almost always frustratingly underwhelming. I mean, they completely overhaul the app interface, they buy the state-of-the-art servers, they hire incredibly expensive external consultants, but the needle barely moves. Our fictional bank has essentially tried to brute force a new digital division into existence, but that massive influx of new revenue they projected, it just isn't materializing. So why is all this massive effort resulting in practically zero impact?
Well, the fundamental flaw really comes down to this massive underlying assumption. Legacy organizations mistakenly believe that the drivers of a digital business are exactly the same as their traditional ones. Instead of fundamentally evolving, they just treat digital as a brand new distribution channel. In their minds, launching a mobile app is strategically no different than, say, opening a new brick-and-mortar branch downtown. By continuing to apply old-school management and organizational principles to new digital programs, our bank is essentially trying to run a modern smartphone on a 1950s rotary dial network. It completely limits the company's potential, it totally stifles genuine innovation, and it pretty much guarantees the kind of frustrating failure that leaves CEOs scratching their heads. To really grasp the mechanics of this shift, our bank has to take a hard look at who they are actually serving today. It all starts with demographics. Consider this. 86% of millennials use social media, compared to much, much smaller shares in older generations. This demographic, typically those between 18 and 35, operates entirely differently than their parents did. They don't just automatically trust a bank because it has a huge marble lobby and a 100-year history. Actually, their trust is heavily influenced by their peers and the brands they interact with every day on platforms like Instagram, Snapchat, and Twitter. And that completely redefines how a business has to communicate, build trust, and ultimately sell its services. The contrast between these customer bases is literally night and day. On one hand, older consumer groups traditionally display incredibly strong brand loyalty. They might stick with the exact same bank for 40 years, stubbornly putting up with terrible customer service or a really clunky online portal just because, well, it's the bank they've always used. But on the other hand, millennial customers who are born into this hyper-connected reality are incredibly fickle. They are fiercely price-sensitive, and they demand absolutely frictionless, high-quality digital experiences. If our fictional bank's new app takes 3 extra seconds to load, or if the onboarding process asks for a physical signature, no way. This younger demographic won't bother calling a manager to complain. They will just abandon the process and switch to a digital-first competitor in under a minute. And this hyper-connected generation is driving a phenomenon completely unprecedented in the history of commerce. Right now, well over half of the entire global population is active on social media. Think about that scale for a second. This level of connectivity is creating an absolute explosion in the volume, velocity, and variety of data. For our bank, this is a monumental operational shift. They aren't just quietly processing paper checks and mailing out monthly statements anymore. Now, they're tasked with processing, tracking, and understanding daily, hourly, and minute-by-minute behavioral data. Every swipe, every click, location tag, and micro-interaction gets recorded. We are living in a reality where data is the absolute foundational currency. Now, this continuous, roaring river of data is a phenomenal opportunity. It allows our bank to deeply understand their customers and offer the highly personalized experiences that modern consumers absolutely demand. But here's where companies mess up. They get sucked right into the data quicksand. This happens when you just hoard massive amounts of raw numbers without generating any actual actionable insights. To avoid sinking, our bank can't just blindly store transaction logs. They have to implement advanced data leaks and predictive analytics. By leveraging machine learning, they can analyze spending habits to proactively offer a perfectly timed auto loan right when the customer starts browsing for cars.
That is how you turn overwhelming data sets into immediate, profitable insights.
And keep in mind, it's not just the customer that's changing. The sheer velocity of technological advancement has skyrocketed. Just a few short years ago, moving to the cloud and having a mobile app was cutting-edge innovation. Today, that's bare minimum table stakes. The whole conversation has already shifted to artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and blockchain. And in 5 years, entirely new paradigms will replace those. For our legacy bank, this is terrifying. They can no longer just keep an eye on the traditional competitor across the street. They have to constantly anticipate massive industry disruptors, think Amazon, Google, or Apple, suddenly leveraging their tech supremacy to break directly into the financial services space. So, to survive against these digital natives and massive disruptors, legacy firms have to fundamentally redefine what technology actually means to them. Historically, tech was just a back office support function, right? The invisible folks in the basement who fixed the printers and kept the servers humming. Later on, it evolved into an enabler for other departments. But today, a digital business is a technology business. Technology absolutely must be the core DNA of the company. For our bank, this means technology leaders need a permanent seat at the executive table. It means your software engineers are actively driving product creation and high-level business strategy instead of just silently taking support tickets from the marketing team.
Okay, so how does a legacy bank actually rewire itself to adopt this tech-centric DNA? Well, first, you have to abandon the traditional steady-state approach. You know the drill. A bank spends 2 whole years operating in secret to build a massive platform, doing a big bang launch, expecting to get it perfectly right on the very first try. Let me tell you, in today's fast-moving world, that mentality is a total death sentence. By the time your 2-year project goes live, customer preferences have completely moved on. Organizations absolutely have to embrace an iterative approach. We're talking continuous deployment, constant, measured experimentation, and rapid adaptation to the market.
When you embrace this iterative mindset, you create an incredibly powerful, continuous learning loop. Step 1. Execute quickly. Instead of a 2-year build, our bank launches a minimum viable version of a new savings feature in just a few weeks. Step 2. Get insights. They immediately use their analytics to watch how real human beings interact with the feature, spotting exactly where users get confused or drop off. Step 3. Tweak and improve. The dev team jumps in and rapidly fixes that specific friction point. And step 4, re-execute and push the update. They aren't sitting around a boardroom guessing what the customer wants. They systematically launch, measure real-world behavior, learn from it, and adapt in real time.
But, and this is a big but, executing this rapid loop hits a major roadblock: deeply embedded resistance to organizational change. You literally cannot iterate quickly if your data, your budgets, and your teams are trapped in rigid legacy silos. We all know these silos exist because of strict departmental budgeting and old corporate turf wars. Marketing fights IT for resources, and neither of them ever talks to operations. But digital problems are inherently interdisciplinary. You simply cannot effectively solve a complex, multi-touchpoint customer issue if finance, marketing, operations, and tech aren't collaborating and communicating with each other every single day. To actually get this iterative engine firing on all cylinders, our bank has to aggressively tear down those traditional organizational hierarchies. They have to shift from slow top-down structures into seamless cross-functional networks. Progressive organizations do this by building dynamic squads. Instead of having all the marketers on the 3rd floor and the developers hidden on the 4th, you build a dedicated team where a marketer, a software developer, a data analyst, and a compliance officer literally sit at the exact same table. They share the same budget, and they focus entirely on solving one specific customer problem together. It drastically reduces red tape and sends innovation through the roof. If our fictional bank's journey teaches us anything, it's that bolting a flashy new digital division onto a decaying legacy framework is a totally futile pursuit. You can't expect a slick mobile app to save a company that still runs its daily operations like it's 1995. True success isn't just about building a digital business. It's about committing to a systemic, end-to-end business transformation. The internal corporate culture, the daily workflows, the foundational technology, the management hierarchy, literally every single facet of the enterprise has to be broken down and fundamentally rebuilt to adapt to this unforgiving digital paradigm.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a pivotal question. Use this as a lens the next time you're evaluating your own organization's strategic initiatives. Ask yourself, and you've got to be brutally honest here, are you just adding expensive, flashy digital features to a stubborn legacy model? Or are you actually doing the incredibly hard work to fundamentally transform your company's DNA from the ground up? Because the answer to that question won't just determine your quarterly profits, it's very likely going to determine your organization's ultimate survival in the digital age. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep innovating.